We are doing this project because I myself and I'm a victim of FGM, and I think through education and empowerment, we can help the thousands of girls who live in my country who go through FGM every day. And just to add into that, 98% of the women who live in my country have gone through FGM.
Right. This must really be a tough fight that the three of you are actually working on, and other young women like you are actually working on. What are the major challenges that are holding the fight against FGM back? In my country, most of the people think that they do have this practice because it's a religion thing and it's a part of Islam, and also they think it's a part of their tradition because their ancestors have been doing it. And my country is like a little bit conservative, so to start this project, it will be very hard for us. But we think when we have religious people, when we have doctors who will be a part of us, and we think we can change the mindsets of my people. Even if we change the rate and 5%, it's something, it's a step. Let's shift gears a bit and talk a bit about scholars and, of course, the issue of improving or promoting their employability rates. Of course, there's been that particular gap and a lot of talk around these streets as far as the graduates who graduate from different higher learning institutions not being employable, not being able to, having that disconnect from what the job market really wants. Is this the same scenario from where you come from?
Yes, absolutely. I'm from Somaliland, and most of the youth in my country, they migrate to Europe. They take the Mediterranean Sea and they go to Italy. From there, they go to the European country. And now my country's falling apart because we don't have youth who are willing to help their country. And I believe one of the ways that we can help Africa or countries in Africa is we should teach our youth the potential that we have as a continent. Because when I went to school when I was young, I never been taught what we as Africans do have and the natural resources that we have and why are we unique compared to the other continents. But I believe if we have that curriculum in our syllabi, in our countries, many things would have changed because the youth will know what can they do for their countries, how can they compete with the rest of the world. But if they are just being taught the Western education and they don't know anything about their continent, today we were being asked, name 2 African scientists, and none of us didn't know. But if you told me name 2 Western scientists, I would have said Albert Einstein and named them, so many of them. But today I was so ashamed because there are so many African scientists and none of us did not know. So I think if we were being taught when we were young, why are we different and why are we unique and why as a continent, how can we transform Africa, we would have changed a lot of things. But now the only thing that we see is these beautiful buildings, these beautiful houses, and we know that the only way that we can change our faith is to go to the European countries or to America.
Right. You're talking of decolonizing our academic systems and education. But how practical do you think this new generation can do that? What sort of steps would you be calling on those who are in charge, those who are responsible of our curriculums, in actually starting to do that with the generation that we're having today?
I think it's very easy. The first thing that we should do is that our government or people who are empowered should understand how they could reshape their countries and ways that they could empower their youth. And even if you go to abroad and study abroad, they should come back to their country. And the only way that they could come back to their country is that if they see the potential that their country do have it. But if your country, there's a famine or war or whatever, the youth will lose aspiration and they might not come back to their country. But if you have few people in your government who are willing to change and to help you despite what, you will have the potential and the ability to come back and the mission. But like if you don't have anyone to look up to, well, you will never come back to your continent.
Right, so they need role models,
yeah.
People they look up to and come back to want to be like them. But let's talk a bit about also this kind of events that we're having here in Kigali today. Sort of a situation where people usually critique such events and say they are talking shops, where people come and have great discussions, come up with communiques, decisions are made, but then when people go back to their countries, it's business as usual. I mean, what sort of practical things do you want to see change in such events that would make them more impactful so that when people leave, they're actually going back to implement what they've decided to do from here?
And I think coming to Kigali and meeting all of these people should be a big step for all of us. Because me, who's coming from Somaliland, if I was not a MasterCard scholar, I wouldn't have this ability to meet with all of these scholars around the world. So even tonight, when we see the showcase of the scholars and what they will present, that will inspire us to do more. And even if they did not win, still they should implement. Because for us, even for my project, if I didn't win for the final, we still have our own savings. We save $60 per month, and we are trying to implement our project to 2020. So at that time, we'll have $1,040. So you start with something small. If you lost, that doesn't mean you lose forever. You start with something small and you go forward. And this is what we as scholars or those people who are in this meeting should learn from each other. That's what I think.
Right, indeed. And of course, you speak of whether you win or lose, it's not the end of the road for you. But of course, it's also important to touch a bit on the issue of the life of most projects, most entrepreneurs, as far as their businesses are concerned. Most of them don't live to see their second birthdays. If we have businesses that start today, within the next 2 years, they're out of business. Where do you see the gaps? How do you see support coming in a way that is a bit more creative, that would see this new projects, new startups, living for eternity, if for lack of a better word?
I think you should be so committed. When you want to start something, you should be so committed. And even within 2 years, if it doesn't work, still you should try. You should take how can I make it better. But if you give up and like you say, oh, this is the end of the world, well, you were not a good entrepreneur. So I think you should be so committed to start you should have something to start with, an idea, and you should be so strong about it, because the road that you will take is not smooth. It's rough. So if you fail, you get up and say, oh, next time I will do it better. So I think you should be so committed on and you should have a mission and a goal to reach every month.
Right. Finally, what sort of mistakes do you think young people like you make when they are getting into the field of business or wanting to change the lives of the people that they want to change through the projects that they have like yours? What sort of mistakes do you think they do?
I think they don't trust themselves. That's the first one. Because as an entrepreneur, as an African kid, I think when you trust yourself and when you trust your country and your continent, you can do it. Because as I was saying before, if all we see is just these beautiful buildings in Europe or in the States, and we don't see what we have, you'll be so greedy, but appreciate what you have and then build on that. Even if you have $1, say, I'm gonna make it $2 tomorrow. But if you always aim high and you don't have a strong base, but you will fail at the end of the day. So you should trust yourself.